What we're going to do now is compare the imperfect and the aorist tense. And this is where it gets quite fun. Imperfect, what's it showing generally? Continual. Generally a continual action that happened in the past. What's aorist doing? Undefined. Well done. You guys are good. Okay. Check this out. John 4 verse 30. They went out of the city and were coming to him. Now, if you were going to look in eSword, which is what you're going to have to do in a week for your homework, you would look up these words. Now, when it says went out, you would find that it's aorist. Let me just show you. I'll go to John 4:30. Right. You see there in the light blue, they went. It's 1831. Then what I do is I go to my Greek text. Here we go. If I colour that for you. That first one is a V for verb. And then what does it say? Second aorist is undefined. Then the next one is imperfect. And I've already highlighted it in light blue for you. Conto, same number, 2064. Now the first letter is what? Verb, yeah. Then the next one is what? Okay, and it's the letter I. Now, is imperfect definitely the letter I on your sheet? You want to check that? Good. Always make sure you check it because there's a few where they're not actually the first letter. Okay, it's the imperfect. This is here, were coming. It's imperfect. So what that's showing us here is they went out of the city, aorist tense. It was just, they gone. And they were coming to him. Now we've got an imperfect tense. Now, what kind of imperfect do you think it is? It shows they went out of the city, and then it shows them coming to him. Ingressive, very good. It appears to be an ingressive. It's shown, and then they began coming to him. Now, does it say they arrived at him? No. So it's gone from the aorist to the imperfect. If it was a movie, it would show they leave the city, and you just have a very quick kind of like snapshot, like they left. Or you would start the filming with them out of the city, as opposed to showing them move out of the city. But then what the camera shows is them beginning to come towards Jesus. Do you all get that? They're beginning to come towards Jesus. It's an ingressive perfect, most probably. Now, what this does is it leaves the audience hanging, because John now goes on to tell us the next bit. It says, meanwhile, the disciples were urging him, saying, Rabbi, eat. He's left the audience hanging. Where are these dudes, these Samaritans? They're coming along. They begin coming towards Jesus, and then scene change. Okay, the disciples were urging. So we go and look up the grammar there, right? So we go into eSword. Okay, we go New American Standard with Strong's. It says were urging. It's the number 2065. Not to be confused with 2064 a minute ago. They were urging. So we go to Westcott and Hort, and we've got it here. Okay, 2065. Aeonto. Sorry, aeontone. Aeontone. It's hard to pronounce that, right? Okay, now it's a V. What does that mean? What does the I next to it mean? Imperfect. Okay, so the disciples were urging him, imperfect. What kind of imperfect is it? Well, that's a good argument, but it's not really, because they're urging him. It's not saying they were trying to urge him. They were actually urging him. There might be similar situations where it would be connotative, but it's not saying they were trying to urge him. They were urging him. Doesn't mean they were successful, but the nature of the verb means it can't be connotative. Progressive.
Doesn't meanwhile suggest.
There you go. Meanwhile suggests what? It begins with S. Simultaneity. Yeah, you know. Yeah, that's what meanwhile suggests. So we can see it's progressive. So it's showing these dudes are coming here. Meanwhile, scene change, the disciples are urging him. Maybe you do your split frame again. The dudes come in, and then another scene, the disciples, Jesus, eat something. Like that. This is the way it's working, okay? Now, then we've got John 4:32. But he said to them, and then Jesus starts preaching to them. So at this point, we're not seeing the Samaritans anymore. Our split screen has gone. We're in Jesus saying, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. Then his disciples said to each other, could someone have brought him food? My food, said Jesus, is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Then he says, do you not say 4 months more and then the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Now, what do you think's happened at this point? The Samaritans are coming to him. Yeah, they've been coming to him, and now in the movie at this point you would have Jesus saying, look at the fields, and the disciples look, and there's all these dudes, all the Samaritans that have left the city, were beginning to come to him, and now they're walking towards him. I've yet to see a film that has truly pictured this. Now, I've heard people say this, but you rarely hear people actually show it from the Greek. People just say, now, I think here it could mean this. But if you look at the tense of the stuff with the imperfect, you're like, boy, this is painting a proper picture. And then he's like, look up. And there they are. Because remember it said back in verse 30, and were coming to him. And then next you see that something's happened with the Samaritans and with Jesus. So it's a great story. Yeah. It's a great story. And when you're telling children this story, you can tell it this way. It really brings it alive. Praise God. Okay, next one. In the New King James, Luke 17:27, it says, they ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Now you read that, and probably after this lesson you would ask yourself, how would you shoot this in a movie? Now, you're looking at that. Have a guess in verse 27. When it says 8 married, given in marriage, just guess what tense it could be without looking at the Greek. We're going to look at the Greek in a minute. What's that? Aorist. It looks a lot like an aorist, doesn't it? This is why you want to check lots of translations. Okay? If we go to the Greek, well, not just check translations, but go to the Greek. What was that? Luke 17:27. Okay, now, here we've got the first one. It's a verb, and it is I, which means what? Imperfect. Next verb. It's got an I, which means what? Imperfect. Next one. I. Okay, right. They're all imperfects, right? Now, check it out, right? If we look for the verbs, they're all imperfect, and then we've got this one here. Second aorist. It's switched to aorist. Now, what you guys want to do is see where does it, because you're not going to know this word, you're going to see the number is 1525. Then you're going to go in here, 1525, and it says, entered. It's the day that Noah entered the ark. It switches to the aorist, okay? Then we go back to our Greek text, and we see that then it says, the next verb here, elphen. You know that one now. The great day of his wrath has come. 2064. What tense is it in? Aorist, that's right. Okay, and this verb here, this is in the aorist as well. Now, because we're a bit short of time, we're not going to look at all of these, but if you look at the New American Standard, it shows you quite rightly the first one's being an imperfect. They were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying, they were being given in marriage, and these are all imperfect, okay? Until the day that Noah entered, aorist tense, the ark. And then it says, and the flood came, aorist tense, and destroyed, aorist tense, them all. Okay? Now, you wouldn't have got that looking at the New King James on its own. But you would have if you'd looked at the Greek. Okay? So this is why it's very important to not just rely on your translation. Check, what you'd be doing, you'd be looking at other translations, and you'd be like, hang on a minute, New American Standard seems to be saying it's an imperfect. What I want to do now is say, what does the Greek say? Because there's times where one translation does something really well and another doesn't. And it's not consistent. It's not like one translation always nails every aspect of grammar. So although the Net Bible seems to be, I haven't studied it extensively yet, but I love the Net Bible for its grammar. I mean, I really do. So here's the New American Standard. If you were shooting this in a movie, right, what you've got is habitual actions. You've got a customary imperfect going on here, eating, drinking, marrying, being given in marriage. What is shown is the way people were living their lives, okay, and then it suddenly switches to the aorist of Noah entering the ark, the flood came. So as a movie writer, you'd have the action, someone getting married, then someone else getting married, and then you'd have people eating, drinking, and you'd have this going over a period of time, everyone just carefree, involved in their own lives. And then you'd have boom, yeah, boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, you got Noah in the ark. It might just be a snapshot. Suddenly, Noah's there in the ark with his family. Then you've got the rain, boom. Then you've got everything destroyed, boom. Have that in 3 scenes, maybe, just little snapshots almost, boom, boom, boom. Now, what it's showing you is the contrast. It's important to know that because some people will teach this and say, eating and drinking is wrong, marrying is wrong. If you're living for the end times, you shouldn't get married. People preach that. You shouldn't get married. If you're going to live in the end times, you mustn't do it. And people think sometimes this is talking about these sins. Now, you're missing the main point if you start teaching about eating and drinking and marrying, okay? Missing the main point of what Luke is trying to show us here. What he's really trying to show us is that when it comes, it's going to be sudden. But people are going to be wrapped up in their own lives. They're going to miss it. That's what the warning is. So you see, it's very useful to be able to look at the imperfect and the present. And you'll find a lot of commentators noting on that one as well. That one's quite easy to find. And when you hear them talking about the imperfect, you can be like, yeah, I know what they're chatting about there.